and guests and the audience out there, welcome to the Capitol and welcome to our meeting today. What we're going to be doing is going over the commodities that are here. We'll give their reports, and at the end, we'll hopefully have time for a few questions too yet. So appreciate it very much, your attendance. The weather isn't a problem after all. We didn't get any snow, so we're in pretty good shape. But the other thing is, if you're all got to settle back and shake off the foot basketball game last night. It's a tough act to swallow. So, but anyway, it was certain a lot of people had a good time for sure. So appreciate that. So by the way, I wanted to announce that there will be a lunch, ag lunch from 11 to 1 p.m. on the first floor north wing from the Ag Alliance, the folks that are actually doing the breakfast too, I believe. So, is that correct? So keep that in mind at lunchtime. I'll mention it again before we finish up. So with that, we'll begin. And we have Senator Straub is on WebEx, and I think Senator McGinn might be too. So we'll catch up with them later. So anyway, our first presentation is from Kent Moore, the Kansas Corn Growers Association. And welcome to the committee, Kent.
And really do appreciate the opportunity to be here. Yes, I am the chairman of the Kansas Corn Commission, Kent Moore. I farm in the northwest part of Pratt County, so south central Kansas, and I represent that district on the commission. And I've been chair of the commission for a while. I don't keep track of that kind of stuff. My guests with me today are Greg Krissick, our Chief Executive Officer of Kansas Corn. Josh Rose here, he's Vice President of quite a few other things. I'm not real sure, but but I know he wears lots of hats for us and does a great job. As I said, I farm in south central Kansas, both dry land and irrigated crop acres and small cow herd, and I'm a fifth generation farmer there. Family always kind of make the joke that the wagon wheel broke off there in like 1877, so that's where we're at, and had a just family farm, which is pretty typical in Kansas, and proud of the fact that we've been there for generations and hope to continue that well into the future. I'm pretty sure that every commodity group that gets up here today for the Senate Ag and House Ag later today is going to tell you that 2022 was an extremely challenging growing season. And rain makes grain, and when it doesn't rain, you don't get as much grain, and that's the scenario we were definitely faced with this year as Kansas corn producers. Our crop in 2022 was 592 million bushels. That's down about 20% from the year prior to that. And that's just the bottom line of the cards we were dealt with the weather that we faced. And it's no surprise to anyone that we're in a drought. We've been in a drought. We stay in a drought. I called the weather station home before came over here from Manhattan this morning, and we managed to squeeze out 14 hundredths of precip from this deal that's going through now. And we're kind of getting to the point where we celebrate heavy dews, and that's just the way it is. We know it'll change. We know it'll get better. We don't know exactly when, but I think that's part of the hope of agriculture and production. Agriculture is always a sense of purpose and a sense of hope into the future. We usually rank around 6 or 7 in states in corn production. This year we were 7th. So, I think the fact that we kind of kept that ranking on a national scale also goes to show that corn production was challenged throughout the Great Plains region, whether you're in Nebraska or Colorado or well into Texas. I mean, it's just a tough year. Slightly over a fourth of the Kansas corn crop is irrigated. As I mentioned, a lot of my acres are irrigated. I'm fortunate where we're at. Our water resources are pretty sustainable and pretty good in south central Kansas and GMD5. And we managed to have I guess what I would call a reasonable irrigated corn crop in my neck of the woods. And that wasn't the case everywhere, but for sure. And a lot of hard decisions had to be made even on irrigated acres about what your next step was during the growing season. I think the crop report we had last week showed, on the U.S., we had 1.6 million acres fewer harvested than we anticipated in the spring. There again, that's just a sign of the drought that we have endured and continue to endure. The Kansas Corn Commission, we work to build innovative programs to make a positive difference for Kansas corn producers. I think we've been pretty successful in that over the years. We continue to strive to increase the availability of higher blends of ethanol, the state, national, and international levels. We fund aggressive efforts to build export markets for corn, meat, ethanol, and other corn products. We support Kansas teachers and students with our STEM education program. Might take a minute to describe that. A few years ago, our commissioners came to the conclusion that we need to be much more active in telling our story. And as you are well aware, we are further removed from families and kids knowing or having any aspect of a farm background in their lives. And we just felt like it was important for us to take a step to aggressively try to make an impact in K through 12 and even into the college education sphere of telling our story, telling the benefits of production ag and how we do things and how we try to sustainably do things. And we've been really pleased with how that's gone. Last year, our education program reached 101,000 students in K through 12. And what we do is we have a team of people led by Dr. Sharon Thielen with Kansas Corn that have developed curriculum, and then the Kansas Corn supplies the needed supplies, equipment to carry out those lesson plans. And they've been wildly successful in getting those integrated into a lot of districts within the state, a lot of urban districts within the state, but quite frankly, the demand for that curriculum and the enthusiasm for having that curriculum available to students, whether urban or rural, has been beyond our imagination. I think without question, Kansas Corn will continue to try to be innovative and take the next step forward as we venture into the crop year of 2023. We have absolutely no idea what that's going to have in store for us, but that's the case every year, and we always just put our head down and get to work and understand that through hard work and God's grace, we always end up with a crop. It doesn't always meet our expectations, but we understand that, and that's part of agriculture. So with that, if would entertain any questions later if you happen to have some, or if you happen to have any now, but I would definitely yield and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And I certainly appreciate your willingness to serve Kansans in your role as state senators, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Ken. We're going to do questions at the end.
Perfect.
We have time, so give you a chance to do that. So next up, we have Kevin Kniebel from the Kansas Grain Sorghum Association. Welcome to the committee, Kevin.
Thank you for having me. It's my honor to present to you on behalf of the Kansas Grain Sorghum Commission our thoughts and our goals moving forward. My name's Kevin Kniebel. I farm and ranch with my family near White City, and I'm the chair of the Kansas Grain Sorghum Commission, and so I enjoy that position, and sorghum is a very important part of our operation. With me today is Jesse McCurry, Executive Director back here, and also Maddie Meyer, Program Director, and also Sarah Sexton Bowser with CSIP, which is the Center for Sorghum Improvement Program which is housed at K-State. So our goal as a commission is we're committed to sorghum production, research, market development, and education. And this information is designed to strengthen, expand, and develop new markets, foreign and domestic, for Kansas producers. Kansas sorghum does not have a state checkoff, but we're part of the national checkoff program, and we enjoy our funding from that program, and it's very important to us. We have leaders on the board of the checkoff program, the national program, and they are very important of the guidance of that program to make sure those checkoff dollars get rewarded for the most impact. That board is nominated by the Sorghum Commission, and also then they are all appointed by the U.S. Secretary of Ag. So they're a very good leadership group to do that. And then when we get those dollars, our commission leaders decide how to best spend those dollars that we get as a passback from the National Checkoff Program. One of those main receivers of those funds is CSIP, the Center for Sorghum Improvement. And what they do with those dollars is find matching funds and grants to best leverage those funds to reward or to get the best bang for the buck for the producers, for the industry, and that can be in the form of research on production enhancements, traits. We have some markers, genetic markers that they've found and got a lot of good results with that. Sorghum is a little bit different maybe than corn and soybeans, that it's a low input crop, that probably the seed cost is a lot less, so the seed companies maybe don't put as much effort into some of those traits. So we try to work with National Sorghum. They have some projects they fund, we have projects we fund, but through CSIP, we get a lot of bang for that buck from the leverage and match that comes from that. We also use our resources to help with marketing. We fund some projects with U.S. Grains Council. They do a great job of using some of the information that comes from the sorghum improvement programs. They're great at educating our customers about how using Kansas sorghum or sorghum in general benefits the people that use it. So they can be a low income or a poverty level producer, or they can be a big corporate entity. So, considering the extreme drought, sorghum continues to impress. It has the ability, the heat tolerant ability, efficiently use moisture, and it has a hang time where it can wait on moisture. It'll sit there and it might come to a standstill in its production cycle, but then if it gets a drink, it can go and produce an exceptional crop, or at least a viable crop. So that's a very good thing about sorghum. Sorghum also, I know Kansas is invested with sorghum through CSIP on the Water Vision project. And so that's a very welcome partnership, and we hope that that continues. You know, one of the, I guess I should close with, why do I grow sorghum? It's a high residue crop. I talked with a gentleman today even that said we grow sorghum because, you know, even if it doesn't produce, it has a lot of residue out there to catch snow, stop wind erosion, hold water, you know, as far as the residues can hold water. It's good for wildlife. You know, it's a source of cover and food for those. There's always a little bit of grain that falls to the wayside. It just fits well in our cattle and farming rotation. I mean, you don't rotate the cattle necessarily, although we do graze the residue and have that benefit. We can rotate those around the fields, but no, you rotate crops, and it's a very good fit for that. I guess included in your packet, which I guess is probably all electronic, I would invite you to peruse that. There's a lot of good information in there. I touched on very little. I'd invite you to ask myself, Jesse, or Sarah, and Maddie any questions that I may not know the answer to. Sarah's all about research, and Jesse covers a gamut of things, and Maddie does a lot with all the programs and getting stuff together that way, and probably does way more than I know. But anyway, I invite you to look at that information. I thank you for your time, and like others, we'll maybe look forward to questions later.
Thank you very much, Kevin, and we'll just do that. Remind we'll have some questions at the end if you have some, so we'll take those up. Next on the list is Ron Oldie, Kansas Soybean Commission. Ron?
Well, good morning, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to give my presentation for the Kansas Soybean Commission. Okay, my name is Ron Oldie, and I farm in Palmer, Kansas, Washington County. Palmer, if you got the right map, we're on it. It's a small town of about 200, counting cats and dogs, so that kind of gives you an idea where I'm at. I represent the 4th District, and those counties include like Washington, Clay, Cloud, Republic, Rooks, Smith, Osborne, Ottawa. Those are counties that I represent in the 4th District. The commission, it's made up of 9 commissioners. 7 are elected, and then there are 2 that at-large positions. And all these positions are all done on volunteer time. A little bit about the checkoff, that all Kansas soybean producers, they participate into the checkoff. And how we collect the checkoff is, I tried to give a good, simple example, but let's say the price is $10, and we collect 1/2 of 1%, which is 5 cents of the $10. 2.5 cents stays in the state of Kansas. The other 2.5 cents goes to the United Soybean Board, the national checkoff. So I tried to give an example so maybe a little more understandable. For our fiscal year in 2022, we collected $6,391,455, and we invested $4,268,229. Well, that's what our budget was for the year. The amount that we invest and collect, it all depends upon yield and then also price. So that kind of determines our budget. To give a little bit of overview on the crop, our average price last year was $15.50 a bushel. And our production was 132 million, which ranked us 11th in the nation. Because of the weather, we dropped 2 positions. So normally we are in the top 10, which I think is pretty neat. Our average yield was 27.5, which ranked us 27th. And also, I don't mean to be repetitive, but weather was our biggest challenge. I mean, not only was it dry, but it was also hot, and it didn't give the crops time in the nighttime to recoup. Because those lower temperatures really what really makes the difference. And hopefully next year will be different. They say the weather never is the same 2 years, but let's hope there's a change there. As a commission, we aim through our leaders, to invest into the future, our checkoff dollars, for our enterprising soybean farmers. And so, we strive, to create, the progress powered by Kansas farmers. And that's been a slogan of ours, and I think it's kind of proven to point and has been very successful. Some of our priorities have been our international market development. We know how key that is. New use development. And just to give you quick examples, I've got a pair of Skechers that joined together with Goodyear. Goodyear have made the soles, but they also include soybean oil. I don't have them on because I didn't feel it was quite appropriate dress, but they're also in the Goodyear tires, soy oil, and seats in the Fords. So that's just a little touch of some of the new uses that we have developed. Research, we're into plants and diseases and fertility, insects, education, outreach program, like Ag in the Classroom, which is very important because we need to educate our youth. That's our future. Some of the highlights of the 2022 year was we invested $4 million into the K-State's Ag Innovation project, something we felt that is very much needed. Also in production research at KSU with genetics and pests, soil fertility. Also another highlight that we had this year was hosted the North Central Soybean Research Program. At their annual meeting, it was hosted here at Manhattan. That is an organization of 13 states that is primarily in the Corn Belt. And so we all get to travel to each other's state through the years to kind of see what they're doing far as research. And this is all that this North Central Research Program does. It's just research. So we got to host it this summer and went extremely well. Also, Ed Anderson, who is the CEO of North Central Research Program, is going to retire from it. And we hired him on a contractual basis to help us with some of our research projects. He has a PhD. He is just a perfect fit for us. And this is going to be a good match. On some of our international development, some of the directors went to Morocco in March of 22 to try and explore, new emerging markets. Lance Rezak, who is a director, he has hosted some trade teams from South Asia and Africa on his farm. Bob Hazelwood, who is former chair, he went to Cambodia with the WISH program, which is World Initiative of Soil and Human Health, which is a very, very good organization to help. Well, it also helps feed some of the needy in the underdeveloped countries. Another highlight was that $100,000 went to the Port of Gray Harbor to help us enhance, some of the meal and exports to foreign countries, because to help develop some of the aquaculture that is really starting to develop in the overseas market. Growth in the renewable and biodiesel fuel is just really starting to explode. You know, we've put up a new biodiesel plant down in Hugoton, and that's just all pretty exciting news. And so this is just some of the few of the highlights that we have had here at the commission. And so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Also, my CEO, Caleb, is here with me today, too. So that concludes my presentation, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. Appreciate
Very
it.
much, Ron. We appreciate that.
All right.
You had a lot of areas there you got covered. It was really important, so
Well, I wish I had more time, but
we might have, we had one more presentation, then we'll have questions.
fine, thank you.
You're sure welcome. Next up is Brian Lennon from Kansas Wheat Commission. Welcome to the committee, Brian.
Thank you, Chairman Kirshen and members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to share some information from the Kansas Wheat Commission. My name is Brian Lennon. I live in Goodland and farm in western Kansas and eastern Colorado with my dad, and I'm a past chairman of the Kansas Wheat Commission. Need to go up there? Okay. The commission was established in 1957 by the Kansas Legislature, and we currently collect 2 cents a bushel through the grain assessment process from farmers, from first purchasers. This year, the Kansas Wheat Commission finalized a statewide effort to gather Kansas wheat feedback on the future, positioning the commission to continue finding innovative solutions for wheat growers and farmers. The roundtable discussions indicated Kansas wheat farmers particularly appreciate programs that highlight our best practices on the farm and provide opportunities to connect with others in the industry and offer guidance that's specific to operations or regions in the state. Winter wheat production for 2022 was 244 million bushels. That was down 33% from the previous year due to the drought conditions we've all talked about, and those conditions are continuing here into 2023. Area for grain at 6.6 million harvested acres was down slightly from the previous year, but planted acres were up from 2020, which was a century low in acres. Yield was 37 bushels an acre, which was down 15 bushels from the previous year. And but planted acres for 2023 are also up. We export about half of the Kansas wheat crop, and that's why our membership to U.S. Wheat Associates, which is our national organization, is essential. And Kansas is a member of that group along with 17 other member states. Overall, wheat exports were down 24% this marketing year, and our marketing year runs June 1 through May 31. Hard red winter exports were down 14% from last year at 275 million bushels this year. Our top customers included Mexico at the top, followed by the Philippines, Japan, and Nigeria, who all continue to be good customers for U.S. wheat. With the Russian invasion of Ukraine in last February, basic supply and demand and other numerous factors have put the commodity markets into unprecedented volatility. And that volatility has continued in the market and, of course, has an impact on world supplies and on farmer success. You may know that protein is a key factor of wheat, and Amber Wave is a company that's constructing a new wheat mill in Phillipsburg, Kansas. Amber Wave observed that the U.S. food manufacturers use wheat protein products, and more than 70% of that was imported. And so that dependence on overseas then became a problem when all the supply chain issues hit. And so Amber Wave's solution was to bring more of that production into the U.S. Another wheat protein plant in Russell, Kansas, which is called Pure Field Ingredients, is the largest domestic supplier of wheat protein in the U.S. They produce about 75 million pounds of wheat protein annually. These two facilities together are looking to source high-protein wheat from Kansas at a capacity that could potentially use 10% of the Kansas crop, which is about 30 million bushels. For the Kansas Wheat Commission, research is still the center of our focus. This is our 10th year in the Kansas Wheat Innovation Center, which is located just north of Bill Snyder Family Stadium in Manhattan, Kansas. and it's on Kansas State-owned property, Kansas State University-owned property. This center was paid for by farmers through the wheat assessment, and it was designed from the ground up to be the nation's home for wheat-based collaboration and innovation, including cutting-edge research in wheat variety development. This year, we also celebrated the conclusion of a $4 million Fields Forward campaign for private investment in wheat, and we debuted that with a virtual tour of our Innovation Center. And if you haven't had a chance to tour that center, I'd personally invite you to come and take a tour and look around that facility. It's really something to see in the state of Kansas. The Wheat Commission and the Kansas Association of Wheat Growers have pledged $1.5 million over 5 years to K-State's innovation program for agriculture to update the ag facilities at the university. And with these private commitments, K-State was also able to qualify for an additional state 3-to-1 funding match, which will really top that project off. We're very excited about that as wheat producers. This year, the commission also launched Kansas Wheat RX, which is a partnership between Kansas Wheat and K-State Research and Extension to disseminate the latest research recommendations for high-yielding and high-quality wheat to Kansas farmers. Our current crop is estimated that the seeded area is 7.5 million acres. That's up 3% from last year's 7.3 million acres. And we're hopeful that Mother Nature will keep bringing us moisture like she is today to get that wheat crop finished out. Thank you once again for your support and the opportunity to share our report. This concludes my report today, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions you might have.
All right, thank you very much, Brian. Really appreciate that. So, committee, we have time yet, so we can entertain some questions for our members here that want to participate. Any questions for Senator Ware?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is a question actually for any of the four presenters today. Do you have, or could you generate, please, a map of the distribution of where the wheat, the soybeans are grown and broken out as to irrigated and non-irrigated in that map? Is that, or perhaps it's two maps for each?
Josh, you want to say something?
Good morning, members of the committee. Josh Rowe, Kansas Corn. Through that, we can go through with that. Sometimes the USDA numbers get a little bit of, there's not much certainty with irrigated and non-irrigated acres through that with some of our crops, but I think I can work with the economist at KDA, and we'll get you something on that. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Josh, and I'm not sure if she was asking too about the grain movement study.
Oh, yeah, and that's another great thing. Thanks for reminding me, Greg. KDA did commission, it's a commodity flow study that's really neat that was just finalized like last August. And I don't have Kelsey up here talking about this, but it's a great resource, and I'll make sure that gets passed along to the committee because it shows not only the production, but probably even more importantly, that next value-added piece and where that ends up in the state, and then also how that flows out of the state for other uses too. So it's good. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Josh. Senator Dahl, you want to answer it?
Could I just add a little bit from the wheat standpoint? So for wheat, it's primarily a dryland crop. And so less than 5% of wheat acres are irrigated acres. And a lot of the wheat that's grown on irrigated acres would be unlimited irrigation. As far as a map in Kansas, if you think about the state as a rectangle, I would say the southwest, 3/4 of the state pretty much are the primary wheat areas. The largest wheat production county in the state is almost always Sumner County, just south of Wichita. But wheat ends up being a pretty important crop in northwest Kansas because of the the higher altitude and the drier climate is well suited for wheat. In terms of the U.S., wheat's grown kind of all up and down from the northwest corner, kind of down through the south, down into Texas and that. And Kansas and North Dakota are the two top wheat producing states in the U.S., we kind of go back and forth with who's number one. This last year, Kansas was number one. But a lot of the northern states produce other varieties of wheat. Hard red winter is the primary variety in this area. They produce other varieties like dark northern spring, soft red winter, different varieties than what we produce here. But that's kind of a rough summary of the wheat situation.
I would still appreciate having a map if that's possible. Thanks.
Senator Dahl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for Kent Moore. Kent, and this would apply to everybody, but the cost of production for corn, I think, of all these is probably higher than the rest of them. How do you get young farmers that they want to get into farming and their parents aren't farmers? How can we get the young involved into being the boss, running the farm? That's a difficult situation, isn't it?
It truly is, and it has been for a long time. Certainly here in the last few years when we've seen production costs just skyrocket. I mean, everybody in the room that produces grain would say, "Why, my goodness, our 22 crop was the most expensive crop we've ever raised." And here we are a year later, and now we're going to make the statement that our 2023 crop is going to be the most expensive input that we've ever had to come up with to try to grow a crop. As far as how to facilitate young farmers, especially from maybe a state legislative viewpoint, it's difficult. There are definitely programs at the federal level through FSA that have beginning loan programs for young farmers. And I know of examples in my own community of farmers that have taken advantage of those opportunities. Maybe there's something that the state through KDA could contemplate to help enhance or maybe fill some holes that those federal programs don't quite serve. But your question's a great question. It's another one of those great questions with really, really difficult answers. And but I
follow up on that a little bit. It's my understanding that more than half of our cropland is owned from people out of state. Yeah. Do they come in? And I just need some education on this. Do they buy the equipment and then have farmers come in and run it for the most part?
Typically, no. I mean, yeah, typically an absentee landowner, out-of-state landowner is someone that has made the investment, or maybe it's land that's been in their family and for whatever reason that family isn't directly involved in the production side of agriculture anymore, but the land is still within the family. And typically in that situation, that out-of-state or absentee landowner owns the land, but the equipment needed to produce crops is still provided by the renter or the cash. Maybe it's a cash lease, but that's usually the equipment's always provided by the farmer, whoever the farmer is.
My understanding is that some of these absentee owners do not want to make money.
Well,
to write off.
That could be the case. I mean, that is pretty counterintuitive to darn near everybody. And it's definitely, if they're really intent on losing money, then just do their best to have a cash lease agreement that's so low that it's a terrible return on their investment. But anybody that's actually involved in the production side of things understands that they have costs that go into the crop, and the goal is to cover those costs and have a little bit to live and maintain equipment and service debt and make your way into the next crop year. So you know, I know from my perspective that the idea of having an asset with the intent and purpose on having that asset be a detriment to my bottom line is kind of out of my realm of thought, but I know it occurs.
Is it correct, though, would you say it's correct that approximately half the cropland in Kansas is owned from absentee owners?
You know, I don't know. Maybe somebody else in the room does know the actual statistic. You know, I guess I don't get real hung up on absentee land ownership. I mean, I have farmed for people over the years that, just like I said, I mean, their family at one point in time lived in northwest part of Pratt County, and because of factors that are well beyond any individual's control, those families transitioned away from farming but still have still have the deed of that land, and a lot of those absentee landowners that I've dealt with over the years, they care deeply about that history of their family in that area, and want to see those communities in which their ancestors lived. They want to see them prosper, and I know that's definitely been the case with the absentee ownership that I've dealt with, and I've appreciated that. I mean, you know, it's amazing to me. I take my dad's 88. When we'll go around looking around at stuff once in a while, and it always fascinates me to when he'll say, "Oh yeah, this used to be, you know, the Thompsons' farmstead, and this was the Jones's farmstead." And you know, it's amazing to me, and it's just the way it is. I mean, we're probably not going to halt the advancement of that. It's the ball's rolling too fast and too far downhill. But at the same time, I know that each of those families, whether they're involved in our communities anymore, they have a sense of pride of that. They know that at one point in time that they had a critical role to play in Kansas, and they still, most of them still believe they do.
Senator Reichman, you have a question?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for your presentations. Of course, you know, I think we'll probably get a bill that we'll ask for more rain. I think that will solve.
Yeah.
And I'll vote for that one. Yep. And with that, we've been hearing a lot about the lesser prairie chicken. And I wonder if any of you would like to comment on it, how that may affect production. And of course, I'm from southwest Kansas, and that's kind of more towards our highlight. Thank you.
Yeah. Man, I am not the lesser prairie chicken expert today. There might be one in the room. You know, I think, you know, there again, I mean, you know, for instance, I mean, yeah, my farm and areas, you know, close to Quivira National Wildlife Refuge and all those things that you know, I think when it comes to lesser prairie chicken or anything in regards to, you know, environmental impact of ag, what farmers and people want to see is just common sense solutions, and I think that those kind of decisions are probably best left up to hopefully made at the state level. You know, I cringe a little bit, I think, when we hear edicts from the federal side of things about some of those types of issues. And I think that Kansans can make wise and informed decisions about how we live in harmony with our resources, whether they're the lesser prairie chicken or the whooping crane or whatever the case might be. We respect the fact that they're there, and most of the time we enjoy the hell out of looking at them. My sister lives right up by Quivira. I mean, she takes pictures of whooping cranes all the time. They're cool. I like them. But at the same time, we have to understand and have to all agree on how to react to those situations.
Senator Ag, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Kent, thank you for your presentation. This can kind of go to anybody in the room, and this is kind of a follow-up to Senator Dahl's question. As far as absentee owners, is China directly or indirectly, is that on your guys' radar, buying ag land? Have you heard any things in the area? I've heard some businesses, but I'd be interested in.
Welcome to the committee.
Good morning, committee. My name is Kelsey Olson. I'm with the Kansas Department of Agriculture. We do not have good known statistics on the land ownership in Kansas. I can say that just under 85% of our farms are family-owned farms, but that doesn't tell us who those owners are, where they might be. It is required by the USDA that foreign owners report to the states of their rights of the land of which they own. So the secretary at the Kansas Department of Ag receives a box every spring sometime of reports that are foreign-owned entities. Typically, these are very small parcels, 0.3 acre, might be a utility company that has a wind turbine. They submit the paperwork, but we don't have a good feel of statistically, we've anecdotally looked through it, and we hear anecdotal stories of people out there purchasing land. We do have some corporate farming laws on the books, and that prohibit certain corporations from owning farmland, but how well that's being abided by, that is held at the county level, and we just don't have some good data behind that.
Any other questions? Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a different topic. So we heard some about the increase in inputs in farming. And I know that there's been discussion about a hydrogen hub, and if that could come to Kansas, that would involve some production of ammonia. There's also some other proposals about putting together excess wind energy with the production of ammonia. How important would that be to any of the commodities if we could reduce that cost of ammonia?
I'm going to defer to our commodity groups on that. That's a major input, but I don't have statistics.
Welcome back, Josh.
Good morning, members. Josh Rowe again here. Hydrogen is actually, we look forward to, it's a pretty vital component in the production of renewable diesel and other biofuels there. And so having more readily access to hydrogen could be a very positive impact. For instance, the ethanol plant there in Garnett is unique in it's the only ethanol plant in the world that has a connected renewable diesel plant with it, and they have to truck in their hydrogen from different sources, very volatile, much more volatile than their other inputs, so that piece is there. And then obviously on the ammonia side, anything to reduce cost of fertilizer right now would be very vital. But this is something, I have a member of my team, we're tracking the hydrogen hub situation very close, because think about it out there, you don't think about it being so vital, but for our value add, it could be very important. So.
Okay, any more questions? I did want to mention the original question about the young farmers starting. K-State last year had a program extension for young farmers to have estate planning, opportunities, a couple-day seminar you could enroll in. And because it doesn't make a difference you get a farm or not, you got to know how to keep it in your family. So I was just curious that's out there. I didn't hear of how that's going to turn out, but I thought that was a beneficial use for extension to help farmers stay with help on those type of topics. So, committee, any other questions? Looks like got them all answered. So that will, thank you very much for attending, appreciate it. Remind you, the Ag Lunch is at 11 to 1 on the north wing on the first floor. So Ag Alliance is sponsoring that, so see you at noon. Thank you. We are adjourned.